The NCAA tournament is one of the marquee betting events of the sports betting calendar, but it comes up real quick after Super Bowl. In this video, we're going to tell you about a couple of betting tools that you've got to use to sharpen your college basketball betting skills. Let's go. Ninja here with Tony Farmer. And Tony, you recommend two sites that bettors should basically bookmark to help them with college basketball betting. But let's start with KenPom. You may have heard KenPom in other college basketball content, but Tony, for those unfamiliar, start off with what KenPom actually is.
Yeah, so KenPom was created by a guy named Ken Pomeroy, and he has his Pomeroy rating. So it's a giant power rankings that are free, by the way, on the main page. If you want to subscribe, you can get extra data and pay a monthly fee, etc. But the power rankings are the most popular feature. They're completely free. And it's a ranking of every single Division I basketball team. And these ratings are a lot better, in my opinion, than like an AP poll or coaches poll or something like that out there, because you're taking away a lot of the human bias and you're getting these stats that are really accounting for strength of schedule. So if you've got a team that has played a really weak strength of schedule and they put up the same numbers as a team that's played a strong strength of schedule, the team that's played a strong strength of schedule is going to look a lot better on these ratings. It accounts for that. It's a really, really, really good set of data.
And folks at home that might be new, that might be logging onto that site for the first time, it may look like an overwhelming series of numbers, but what are some of those valuable pieces of data that KenPom features?
There's a bunch. I mean, the most popular are going to be adjusted offensive efficiency and adjusted defensive efficiency. In a nutshell, this is how good a team is on offense and how good a team is on defense. And it's really important to take a look at these numbers. The defensive side of things, Ninja, I think is like kind of underrated. For people that don't bet a lot of college basketball, a really good defensive team can shut down a really good offensive team. So keep an eye on that as well. There's also adjusted tempo that will give you an idea of basically how quick a team plays. And that's huge because that means how many possessions they're going to get and how many opportunities to shoot that they're going to get. And then when you click on each individual team, this is where we get into the subscription side of the website, you get a full breakdown. I mean, how tall a team is compared to other teams nationally, how experienced they are, what percentage of their points come from three-pointers versus free throws versus two-pointers, steals, block percentage, a whole bunch of stats that are honestly, if you're a stat nerd like me, it's fun to look at, but it can also be helpful as a bettor.
And how can bettors use KenPom info to make a much more informed bet? Like, for example, you talk about adjusted tempo, and I'm not saying this is the gospel, but I love seeing two teams that rank high tempo and that against a total at my book. But what else can bettors do to leverage this data?
All right, so I mentioned clicking on a team off the power rankings gives you the team page. You can go a step further into the onion, the next layer down, and you can go to the matchup page. So if Duke is playing North Carolina tomorrow, you can get a side-by-side comparison of all of Duke's stats when they're on offense against North Carolina when they're on defense and vice versa. So they also color code it. So if a team is really good in an area, like if one team is really good at causing turnovers, the box is going to be green and you're going to see a little ranking. They rank 28th in the country in these turnovers. And the team that they're playing might have a red box. So I like to look for those mismatches and look for the green versus the red, because that tells me, whoa, we got a really sloppy team who gives the ball away a lot against a team who causes a lot of turnovers, or a team that can get a lot of shot blocks versus a really short team that gets their shots blocked often. Those are really good data points that you can kind of exploit as a bettor.
Now, the second site that you love and you use routinely when you're capping college basketball is one called Bart Torvik. I'm personally not as familiar with Bart Torvik, so basically I'm part of your audience here. So break down what Bart Torvik is.
It's very, very, very similar to KenPom in that the main feature is these power rankings. The power rankings are pretty similar to KenPom. Like, as we're recording this, Ninja, I was on both of these sites earlier today. Both sites have the same teams in their top 6, but they're in a little bit different order. So you go over to Bart Torvik, he actually acknowledges in his frequently asked questions, like, I use a lot of KenPom data as the basis. That's why these are so similar. But he also mentions a few tweaks, and you can go over to Bart Torvik yourself and see what some of these tweaks are. One of them, for instance, is he puts a little more emphasis on recency. He has a whole formula where if a game was played in the last 40 days, it has 100% impact on his algorithm. And as the game gets a little older, it has a little bit less weight on his numbers. So, in other words, games that happen more recently, he takes into account a little bit more. So, that's one of the examples of one of the tweaks. The other big one is Bart Torvik has women's college basketball numbers as well. So, that's something to keep an eye on. And you don't get that over at KenPom. So, if you like to bet the ladies' side, Bart Torvik is a great option. Ninja, I think you'll like this one, though, because I know you're a baseball guy and I know you're familiar with the WAR stat for baseball. So, Bart Torvik has PRPG exclamation point. I love that he gets the exclamation point in there. And it's points over replacement per adjusted game at that usage exclamation point. And so you're looking at really a lot of the best players in the country. And the way that I like to use this one is if you know that going into this game, you've got a team with a thin bench and one guy who has really good PRPG exclamation point stats, he's really important to his team, right? And a thin bench. If that guy gets in foul trouble, that could be a great live betting opportunity to potentially fade that team because their star player, who is a big value to that team, is in foul trouble and they might not have him later in the game.
Super handy, super useful info there. But maybe this is going to be the most important question. Which do you think is the more enjoyable one to say?
Ooh, I think Bart Torvik just sounds cool. I think I'll go with that. I'll go with Bart Torvik, and little less people have heard of it, so it's got that as well.
There are tons of stats-based sites and analytics sites that can help you bet college basketball, and these are just a couple. If you found this video helpful, hit that thumbs up button. Let us know in the comments which sites you like to use to help you bet college basketball. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your bets.